Welcome to another Ask Katrina. Today's question is, Katrina, I'm dealing with a really tough to get along with female colleague. How do I navigate that relationship? I feel your pain. I think on a multitude of levels. I think as women, when we work with other women and there's a natural rub, right? Actually, probably an unnatural rub because we consider us to be able to get along with the majority of women, right? In our minds, we sort of tell ourselves things like, we know the corporate world is going to be hard. We know the executive ranks are going to be hard. But if we all stick together, right, we're okay. We also think that when we get into the executive ranks, that the days of cliques and inclusion and exclusion of other women is supposed to go away, right? We were supposed to grow out of that. And yet what we find as we continue to enter into that corporate world and we still climb is we keep hoping at the next level it'll go away, and the next level it'll go away, and the next level it'll go away. And it doesn't seem to ever go away. And so we're perplexed by that a little bit. I think a lot of us are. I used to be. I work with a lot of women who are still perplexed with that. And so, it's the combination of, aren't we all supposed to help each other because it's hard enough? And wasn't all of that pettiness supposed to go away a long time ago? We should have grown out of that. And so when we step into that executive seat, or really anywhere in the corporate world, but especially in the executive seat, and we're having to deal with a peer, for example, that just doesn't really want to be a good peer, and it's another woman, how do you navigate that? And so what I would tell you is a couple of things. The first thing is recognize that every person is going to think differently than you do because we're all different. And just because you wouldn't show up and treat someone that way, just because you wouldn't lead in that capacity, doesn't mean that someone else would choose to do it that way, right? That's just accepting reality for what it is. It doesn't make them right. It doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make you right. It doesn't make you wrong. It just makes it what is, okay? And so just recognizing that it is what it is step number one. Step number two, recognize the fact that because you would not show up that way, you're probably not going to be able to figure out why she is showing up that way. Don't spend a lot of your time or brain power or energy trying to figure out why she is doing it the way she's doing it. You're never going to know unless she point blank tells you. And that's a powerful, powerful lesson that I've had to learn over the past 6 months in various working relationships and friendships and personal relationships. It's, don't try to spend your time figuring out why, because you can't. You can ask that person, but I don't know that you're going to feel comfortable asking this other woman why she's showing up in a way that's not super friendly or productive, or has that team mentality, rather, right? She's not showing up in that regard. I would just simply tell you to accept it for the way that it is and navigate past that. Now, I don't want you to think that if she's causing problems for you in your business, she's holding you back, she's becoming a barrier to progress, that you shouldn't address that. What I'm saying is, don't go ask her why she is who she is or why she shows up the way she's showing up, especially if you don't have a friendship, right? If you have some sort of rapport built, if you feel like you can ask her those questions, if you feel like you can be a resource to her and help her grow through it, that's very different. But again, that's not your responsibility nor your obligation to do that. I'm just simply saying there's a big difference between understanding why and then helping to move past any potential barrier she's creating for you so that you can generate success. Okay? The other thing I want you to think about and realize is there is a reason for why she's showing up the way that she is. Realize that the way people treat you is really just a reflection of who they are, right? And I have noticed throughout my entire career that men and women, it doesn't matter the gender, quite frankly, but when they're hateful, when they're aggressive, when they are very combative, it's because of fear internally. Now, we don't know where that fear is coming from. Again, we don't need to dive into why. We don't have time to spend on why. We just simply need to understand that that cannot affect the way we show up. We can't let their problems, their fears, their insecurities, their doubts come into the way that we perform. So that's the other reason why I don't want you spending time on why. I don't want you spending time trying to, figure it out or allow yourself to get frustrated by it, because that has everything to do with them and not you. Okay. Don't internalize that. The next thing is just accept the simple fact that you're probably not going to be friends, and that's okay. Right? Think about all the other people that you worked with throughout your entire career and you weren't friends with them. You were colleagues, you got along for the sake of the business, and maybe you didn't get along for the sake of the business per se, but you made things happen in spite of, and you moved the business forward because ultimately, while you may not have thought alike, while you may not have shown up on the same page, you still had the same common mission of serving the customer at the highest level, right? And helping the company deliver on the mission that it has. Okay. So what I would tell you is this: if you can look at that individual and say, we have this common endpoint. We may not get there the same. We may not show up the same way. We may not deal with the world in the same capacity, but she wants the same common endpoint I do, right? Then you should be able to figure out how to get there. She's not going to do it the same way you are. She's not going to show up the same way you are. Okay. That's the thing we have to realize. She's not going to. And we can't get bogged down in why. And we can't get upset that she's probably still showing up in a way that's not as mature as you would like to be or as you are. And we have to let that go. We can't deal with the what ifs and the should haves and I wishes. We have to face reality. We have to accept that we're not going to have friendships in that situation. But we can align around the common mission of the organization, and we can keep that at the focal point. And anytime we have discussions with this individual, we're focused on achieving the mission together. That's all we talk about. Hey, how can we work on this together to get to this endpoint? What does that look like for you? How are you getting your team there? How can I support? Here's what I'm doing. Here's how you can support me. And it's all about not the human side, but about the common mission in the organization. Okay? That is what we must stay focused on. And if you can stay focused on that, typically that's how you win. Now, we can go off on one more tangent for 2 seconds, because yes, there are times that there are leaders that do not focus on the company mission, that do get bogged down in their own personal agendas. And what I will tell you is that you are not the only one that is going to notice that or is noticing that. If this person does not report to you, then I would not spend my time getting too bogged down in it. If another leader asks for your feedback, share it. Okay. But what you don't want to do is make it your mission to make this person better, right? Because it's your definition of better for the organization. The organization has other leaders in place, her supervisors in place to make sure she's showing up and being the leader that she's meant to be, that the company needs her to be. You stay focused on yourself, your team. Don't get bogged down in the details of her. Align together on the common mission and move forward. That is how you navigate this situation. As always, go and be legendary.